Hello everybody, you're welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are a returning subscriber, you're welcome. Thank you for coming back. And if you are just listening to me for the first time, you're welcome to my YouTube channel. Boom. Alright guys, so you're welcome specially to this channel, and in today's episode I'm going to be talking about something very much spectacular to me: the struggle of accepting myself. Right, so all of this is actually leading to a series which is my journey to personal development. All right, so I decided to do a series in order to make you actually realize the reason why I am a personal development coach today, the reason why I am doing what I'm doing today, the reason why I found my path on this pathway I am treading today. Okay, so it's all started accepting myself was a struggle, right? I hated myself so much. So I want to share with you the struggle I faced accepting myself. Boom. Yeah. A little background story. I'm an introvert, and whilst growing, right, when I was very much younger, I used to be more of an introvert, but now I have the extroversion trait dominating very well. But then I used to be a chronic introvert, and I experienced a lot of setbacks, a lot of due to my stature. Okay, so secondly, due to my looks. Okay, and then thirdly, due to my temperament. So my stature, my looks, and my temperament. So these three things actually were a resulting factor to me experiencing low self-esteem, and it affected me drastically. So I want to share with you so that if you are actually experiencing any of these things today, or you know anyone who is experiencing it, you can actually help such person out of it. And if you are the one, I'll be sharing with you things I did to actually come out of this situation. Right, so the first thing that actually caused me belittling myself, me thinking of myself as less, was my stature. Right, I have a very small stature compared to my age. Right, I used to be like that. So I remember that when I was much younger, right, when I was in primary, we used primary then, yes. So when I was in primary, I think primary 5, so I was in primary 5, right. I was formerly in primary 4, but I got a double promotion to primary 5, right? Primary 5, 6. So 5 and 6 were combined together in my school then. So I was already doing the work of primary 6. So that was what it was. So I was promoted to that class, but then I didn't really know if I was in primary 5 or I was in primary 6. All I knew was I was being prepared for common entrance. Like my teacher was preparing me for common entrance, and this was back then when I was in Lagos, right? But that to be precise, yeah. So that was where we grew up. So, and we were there and things were going on smoothly, but we had to relocate to our own house, like my parents' house, like they have a built themselves. So, and the house is actually in Ogun State. Well, it's still closer to Lagos State, right? So, but at least it was a different location entirely. So now when we relocated, remember I was doing very well in primary school then. I was doing amazingly well. I was always either first or second. It was a sweet journey for me. It was a sweet phase for me until when we relocated. So when we relocated, I remember I said that I was in primary 5/6, right? Yeah, the class was combined, but then they reprogrammed my mind that I was going to my common interest and go to secondary school from that class. So, but when we relocated, I don't know what happened, but I just realized that they did not put me in the class I was meant to be, and it was so devastating for me. They did not put me in primary 5, neither did they put me in primary 6, or they rather took me to primary 4, all in the name of I look too small to be in that class. Like, what are you telling me? So I was like, what is happening, right? And I actually noticed that, the teacher, when I got to the school, the teacher was looking at me like it was as tall as here. So age-wise, I was qualified to be in that class, but then stature-wise, I didn't look like my age. So I looked smaller than my age. So they now put me in the class where I fit into. And funniest part was, even that same primary 4, I still looked like one of the youngest in the class, despite the fact that I was one of the oldest in the class. Like, so that was the beginning of frustration for me as a child, because I felt like it was a disrespect to me. I felt like my consent was not even was not asked, they did not involve me in the whole process, and all I just saw was I was demoted, not because I did not even do any tests, funniest part. So it was not because I did an assessment and I did not meet up, that was why they had to demote me, but they demoted me because of my stature. Oh, like, who does that? So as a child, I was still very much young then. I just felt like there was something wrong about my stature. So if my stature could actually make me repeat, then it is a big problem. So I felt like God hated me for making me have that small stature. Now, I was in primary 4, so I was so annoyed. I hated the school, I hated the system, I hated my teacher, I hated everything, because I felt like they failed me, so I felt it was a failed system. So I told myself I was not going to relate with anybody, and truly till I left that school, I did not relate with anybody. I did not like anybody. I was just on my own. So that was how I went back into my shell. I started becoming a shadow of myself. Now that was one experience of stature, and it continued like that. I remember that when I was in GSS 3, after my junior WAEC, right? So I did junior WAEC in Ogun State, and in Ogun State you did junior WAEC in second term, right? And way before they even start second term exam, so I had a whole of a term and few weeks to myself, right? So you could either use it to learn a trade, you can use it, don't use it to do anything. So that period of time, right, that second term after I'd finished my junior WAEC, I was home. Obviously, you're not expected to be in school, so you're expected to be at home, either doing lesson or doing anything that just do something lucrative with your time. So I ran errands for my mom, and one of my neighbors saw me. She was like, "Oh, Mary, why are you not in school?" I said, "I just finished my junior WAEC exams." The woman said, "No, I'm not saying your elder brother, I'm saying you." And I said, "Yes, I just finished my junior WAEC exam." And she was like, "It is not possible. I had to ask your mom. You this small girl." I was like, "What? What are you telling me?" I felt insulted as a child, right? Because I was like, okay, no, I'm not even in the normal class I'm supposed to be, right? Yes, I know I was promoted I received a double promotion, right? And that was if I was not taken to primary 6, at least leave me in primary 5. I was not left in primary 6, I was not left in primary 5, but in primary 4. So that was annoying. Like, I was demoted for no reason, I was voted for looking smaller than my age, right? So that was the challenge. And then this person is telling me that it's not possible. So imagine that kind of thing. So psychologically, I agree with the mindset that I am with my juniors in the class. Do you understand? I agree with that mindset. Oh yes, yeah, at least. And it actually happened that there was no class I was not in the midst of my juniors. Yes, of course, I will be in the midst of people that are my age bracket, and probably one or two that are even 1 year older, right? But then the fact remained that I had juniors in my class, so it means that there would have been a better class for me. That's a step ahead of the class that I was. So it was really annoying for me. I remember that in that primary 4, some of my mates then even did common entrance from primary 4 to secondary school. But my dad is the kind of person that does not like to skip protocols, so he just felt like, no, I just have to go through the normal procedure. So I did not intern. So I felt like, I felt angry again at my dad for that, because I was expecting him to say, okay, after all, since some people are doing common entrance for primary 4, I should do common entrance for primary 4 and then go to secondary school. That way I will build my set, right? So I thought, but then my dad, he does not support such. He likes you going through the route the normal way. So it was so devastating for me as a child, because I felt like the problem was myself. I felt like there was something about me that was not cool, right? So yeah, so that was that. And the junior secondary school experience I had too was also like that. Till secondary school, right? I even despite the fact that I was age-wise, right, I had so many persons that I was older than in the class, but I still looked like the youngest in the class. Whoa, what is happening? So in terms of stature, people that are my stature, these people that are my age mate rather, I used to look extremely younger than them, extremely younger than them. So it was something that was very devastating for me. I remember when I was in SS3, I was looking like I was just in GSS2. Yeah. So it was not a matter of age, it was a matter of stature. So I felt like there was a problem with my stature. So it was really very devastating. So another thing again is, aside from the stature, persons that have small stature, but then they have the strong face. Yeah. But fortunately, I happen to have both the small stature and the small face. So that comes to my look. So most times people find it difficult to relate my look with my age, right, or my look with my status, or my look with my position, right? So it used to look like there's no, the chemistry is contradicting each other. So that was it for me. And there was an occurrence whilst I was growing. Grew up in a Yoruba land. Obviously, we know that Lagos is a Yoruba land. So growing up in such environment, let me call it Ogun Lagos, because those areas that other side is Ogun State, the other side is Lagos State. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's how my area was, right? A part is Lagos, a part is Ogun State, so we still call it Lagos. So now it's actually Yoruba land. So, and in Yoruba land, one thing is very much peculiar, and that is respect. So whilst growing up, somebody who is older than you, right, you need to call them, you need to respect them, so you don't call them by their name. So we grew up seeing that, and then my mom would tell me, don't call that one name, call her auntie, call her this one brother, call sister, sister, brother, that kind of thing. So you attach something to their name, to show regard. So it was a thing. But then it happened that my mom would not even allow us to disrespect anybody, and I was respecting everybody as much as I could, but I was not getting any respect from those that were younger than me, right? So let me break that down. Let me give an example. We used to have a neighbor then. We used to play together. Now they have an elder sister, right, which is the firstborn. She was just a few months older than me, right, almost a year, but was not up to a year, but she was a few months older than me, about 9 or 9 or 11 months left, well, it was almost a year, but it was not a year older than me, but she was older than me in terms of months, right? So, and then the younger ones, I was 2 years plus, like I was 2 years and a few months, about 2 years 7 months older than them. That's almost 3 years older than them. So she is actually 3 years older than them, 3 years plus older than them. So that was how it was. And then my own younger brother, I'm 3 years younger than my younger brother, and so that means that they are age mates my younger brother, but they are months older than my younger brother. So that was how it was. So now imagine that kind of scenario. Obviously the girl is my mate, right? It's just months that did not match up, right? She was a few months older than me. So in such scenario, I was not expected to call her auntie, right, or sister, whatever, you get it. So I could relate to her because we were mates. But then the younger ones, I was older than them. So my younger brother used to call their elder sister auntie. So this talk is actually very funny right now, like, but that was what society has to put us into, and it kind of affected us psychologically, affected me personally, right? Yeah, affected my esteem. So it's actually very important I explain these things so that you really understand the genesis of what affected my esteem. So my younger brother used to respect their elder sister, but those because they are twins, right, they found it difficult to actually respect me. Why? Because they said I don't look it, like I look like, so while we were very much younger, right, I still looked younger than they were, or I looked like I was kind of like the age brackets, right? So despite the fact that the difference is a lot. So in terms of class, I remember when I was in GSS 3, at the time I was in GSS 3, they were just in primary 5 or probably GSS 1, but the gap was a lot, right? So it's when I'm leaving a class, that's when I'm leaving a phase, like when I'm leaving secondary school, like GSS 3 to go to senior 7, that's when they are just preparing to enter junior secondary school. So the gap was actually there. Despite that fact, they said they could not respect me because I don't look my age. So it was a problem for me. So, but at some point, because they, it was kind of like a mandatory thing. You have to respect people that are older. Like that was not a societal thing. In fact, where we were coming from, where we were staying before, it was a very private estate. We don't used to mix up with people and all. But then when we relocated to that place, we said when you're in the room, you have to behave like the room. And so my parents decided, okay, we have always been the indoor kind of children. So my parents decided, okay, let not just release us once in a while to go and mix up with other people. So that was what actually led to all this talk of respect or no respect. So now back to the story. And so it continued like that. So at some point they were not like, oh, okay, no problem, they would respect me, right? So far my younger brother is respecting their elder sister, right? So it was the same way my younger brother was respecting their elder sister. That's how they were supposed to respect me. But because I was not looking, so their elder sister looked bigger than I was. Do you get that scenario now? The elder sister looked way bigger than I was, and they were even looking almost bigger than myself. So that was where the challenge was. So I've always looked extremely smaller. My look, and in terms of my stature, I've always looked extremely smaller. So at some point, it started coming around, and see, when you see children coming around, like, okay, they don't want to disrespect you, but then they are not still accepting the fact that you don't just throw the auntie or brother at you like that. They're like, someone used to call name before. So instead of calling your name, they will say, hey, they'll be avoiding calling your name. So that's what they sign that, they've accepted, but they are still trying to program or process the auntie or sister attaching it to your name. So that was the phase that we were, and then next phase happened, adolescence happened. So it then happened that these children, they had a rapid adolescent stage, and before you know what happened, they just bloated, like boom, they actually ascended to the adolescent stage, and they were looking very, very mature at a very tender age, right? But me, on the other end, who was within the adolescent stage, right, they were still according to biology now, right, it's adolescent stage for a girl starts before, that's our time, it's within age 13 and 15, and then I think I was already so I was actually between that age, and these children were just around they were just around age 12. So imagine age 12, 13, no, I said 13, 15, so they were around age 10 exactly. So they were around age 10, and they already got into the adolescent stage. And I, who was already in the age within the age 13 and 15 that was supposed to be adolescent stage, I looked like I was just 8 years old. So then it happened that they crossed into the adolescent stage way early. Well, I would not say early, I would just say I was the one that it was my own biological system or process that was very slow. And it now happened that all the children that were younger than me now, so it was no longer the matter of age now. So physically, I was not looking like the youngest to all. Even now, I was even saying this one. I'm even saying that I'm about two years plus older than them. Now let's look at those that I was 4 years, 5 years older than. Now they all crossed into adolescent stage, and I was still looking like a child. My adolescent stage was so slow. So when you see, girls, I had very flat chest even in SS, like it was that bad. I looked so small, I was so short, and I looked so small. I had very flat chest, and you get that kind of thing. Even the guys were already, they were already growing, having broad chest, their throat and all. So it was embarrassing for me because of the conversations that we had before, conversations of age or no age, right? So it was not a matter of, okay, yes, we have now accepted that you are older than us, but then you are not looking it. So that was another thing for me, that amongst my friends, I was the only one that had flat chest. Oh goodness. Basically, these two things affected my esteem, and it was really challenging for me. I knew I needed to work on it. So I remember there was a time, I think my parents began to notice it. I don't know, but I think maybe some people started, of course, there's people that, like I said, some people are mannerless. Like, they won't say it to your face that, why do you look this small? Why do you look this dry? Why do you look this like, So there was a day that I was not happy, right, about how my neighbors. So because of that, I stopped associating with my neighbors. I stopped associating with everybody. I just always kept I don't know go to visit people, because there's no how they will not bring up that discussion. I don't know why people can be like that. So you just talk anyhow. So, and when they begin to say these things, right, it gets to me, because I felt my body system was so slow. I felt like there was something wrong about me. I felt like I was not growing. Like, it was just as though as I was retarded, right? Like, I had retarded growth, right? So I felt like I was not normal. So that was the thought that was growing in my mind. So because of that, I stopped I stopped going for general functions. I was also always on my own, always indoor and all. So my friends, they look huge. They look very huge beside me. People that were my age mates, even in my age bracket, right? They look extremely older than I do. So, but I mean, I was looking like they are 5 years younger than they were. So it was really a challenge for me as a child, because I felt like, oh yes, so now my stature has failed me, and then my looks has failed me. So it was very demeaning for me. It was very, very, very devastating for me. And to even make the matter worse, there are certain persons that don't know how to talk. They'll tell you, why are you so slim? Why are you so small like this? People saying that, why am I in that class? Some people are not sensitive to things like this. So imagine when I was in SS3, some people will be arguing that I'm not supposed to be in SS3. I'm supposed to be like in GSS2. How is it their business? I'm still battling with the fact that I was not supposed to be. The time I was in SS3, I was thinking, I was not happy with the fact that I was demoted. So it was something that stayed with me as a child, even though I did not discuss this with anybody. But it was something I was battling with. And then this issue of, oh, she's a small girl, like, so I was just saying she's a small girl, she's a small girl, she's a small girl. So I hated that word small. If anybody uses that word small, I got more annoyed. So I hated myself, I hated my stature, I hated my look. And at some point I was even wishing that probably if I had an old woman's face, maybe it would have been better. So I would look older, but I know I will have small stature, because there are some persons that actually have very small stature, but they have this very mature look. So I was wishing I had a mature look, but then fortunately I didn't have that. So it's the baby face that we all have in my family. Sometimes some people still mistake me to be a teenager. So that was a challenge, right? That was a challenge I faced as a child. So these things were eating me up deep down inwardly, and I was not sharing it with anybody. This is actually affecting my self-esteem. I had low self-esteem issues, and also I was not confident enough. Thirdly, I also experienced low self-esteem due to my temperament. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm an introvert, right? So as an introvert, I was always to myself, and so the challenge was I grew up in the midst of extroverts, right? And in my mouth. So, and on the other end, people around me, I see people do more with their mouth than they do with their head and they do with their hand, right? You see some people say some things without thinking about it, right? They just say things sharply. And then you see some people, they don't know how to, they don't have the patience to put into writing. I didn't know that it was a blessing, right? So this is to say that both introversion and extroversion, they are good because they both have their strengths. So I was not focusing on my strength, I was rather focusing on my weaknesses, because people around me, right, the society did not recognize my strength. So it was a lot of struggle for me while growing. I remember when I was in secondary school, I hardly related with anybody. Like, I was mostly on my own. I don't communicate with people. I did not have any friend in church. I did not have any friend in school. I did not have any friend in the neighborhood. I did not have any friend anywhere. And this continued, right? And it was really very bad, right? I just needed a way out. I needed to come out of this situation that I was in, because I was beginning to lose my mind. So it was more or less like I was strange. So, and when I see the way every other person is expressive, when I see the way every other person communicates, but I can't communicate that way. So the way I think is completely different from the way everybody thinks. The way I want to express myself is different from the way everybody wants to express themselves. So and it was as though nobody actually understood how to relate with me as an introvert that I was. I looked like I was strange. I looked like I was strange, and so because of that, I felt like, oh yes, this is it again. There's something wrong about me. So one of the challenges, or one of the things that the devil tried to do was play with my mind. Anytime anything, I always point the accusing finger at myself. So I felt like I was the problem. So if there's anything, if anybody does anything bad to me, if anybody hurts me, I would just say it is because the problem is from me. Do you get it? So I felt like I was a problem. I felt like I was, God did not create me well. There was something He did not do when He was creating me. Especially one of the challenges, one of the things I noticed, very much related to my temperament, was that I was not expressive, right? I was not expressive. I'm a thinker. I'm a very analytical person. However, I think more in my head, and I do more with my hands and in my head than I do. Like, I just wanted a way out of the whole situation, because it was beginning to get like, it was really getting to me. I just felt like, okay, like I said, I always felt like I was a problem, so I was not relating with anybody. I was just always on my own, and I knew that this thing needed to stop, because I was just tired of that boring life. I was tired of, yeah, there were advantages to these things, right? Because it made me own my time. It made me, so even I remember that then when I used to beg my mom not to send me on errands, because I don't want to see faces. So I like to do indoor, I like to do chores at home, but not errands. So I used to plead that my mom should send my siblings on errands, but you see, the indoor errands, I'm ready to run them, but I just don't want to see anybody. Like, I want to be on my own. So this continued, and I got tired. I really got tired, and I just wanted a way out. I wanted to know how to make friends. I wanted to know how to relate with people. I wanted to actually, get out of my shell. I was so devastated about the whole situation, because it was killing me. I was bitter. I was a very bitter person while growing. I remember my teenage stage, like, I can't even remember anything tangible I can hold on to my teenage stage, except for the fact that was when I began to have a communication with the Holy Spirit. Aside from that, in terms of communication, expression, collaborations, social goals generally, like, it was zero. It was zero. Because I remember then, if a visitor is coming home, right, coming to visit us, once I hear a knock on the door and I'm in the parlor, I will run away as if you were chasing me. And you hardly even find me in the parlor. I was mostly locked up. I used to lock myself up in the room. I just want to be alone. I was not enough. I felt like there was something about me that was not good. I felt like God, did not do a complete work. I didn't like my stature. I didn't like my looks. I didn't like my, my temperament, because I felt like I didn't know my temperament was a good thing. As at then, I didn't even know it was introversion. I didn't know, there's an introvert, there's an extrovert. So I just felt like, because I was not expressive, because I could not do things the way people do, because my thinking pattern was completely different from others, and they were not even understanding, right? So I felt like, so when I say something, they're like, what's one saying? Like, you're not thinking in the direction of every other person. So I felt like, oh yes, I'm actually odd. I know I'm odd. So I was fond of telling myself that thing, I know I'm odd. I would just go to my room, I'll cry, pick up a book, I'll write a poem, or write a story, or read. And I used to be a reader. Like, not I used to, I am a reader. So like, I read so many books while I was growing there, because I was always alone. So I was either writing a book, or reading a book, or talking to myself, or talking to the Holy Spirit. Then I didn't even know that I was actually communicating with the Holy Spirit, but with time, as it grew, it was then I realized, because I started getting responses late back. But at first, at the beginning, I wasn't. So I would just be hallucinating. I would just be soliloquizing. I was just on my own. I was just that personal person. Like, everything was just me, right? So that was what it was for me. That was how low self-esteem was for me, and it really affected me academically. I will be sharing that in another episode entirely, but then in this particular one, I just decided to share with you what I faced accepting myself. So that was it. But then I got delivered. I got saved. Now, if you see me, you thought say suspect, my darling, in the wrong lane. Right? So presently, I love myself so much. I adore myself. I love my stature. I adore myself. Really in love myself, because as a result of those challenges I faced while growing, so I felt like I had to work on it. It was a long process, and time will not permit me to share how I achieved that now. But let me just say one of two things. I had to seek help. I had to seek help from God, from the Holy Spirit, who was my creator. So I'm really going to break down how I achieved. I don't want this video to be too long, so don't worry. Look forward to the next episode. I'm going to be sharing with you how I overcame this low self-esteem. Boom! See you in the next episode. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, please do so now, and turn on the notification bell to get notified as soon as I upload the next episode. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Thank you. Please, I want you to share this with as many as possible, because you might not really know who is going through such a tough time like this, right? I mentioned that when I was going through these things, I didn't tell anybody. It was just dying in me. It was just in me. I was facing the problems all alone. So there might be somebody beside you who is actually facing challenges like this, but is not opening up. So please feel free to share this to as many persons as possible. That's the best way. This is free, so you're not spending any money to do that. In less than 1 minute, you just copy this link and then share with as many persons as possible. You can share your status, share on your Facebook, share in people's DM, tell your friends about it. Share with your daughters, your sons, teenagers you have around you, especially people in their 20s, early 20s to mid 20s, right? They're the ones that mostly experience challenges like this. So please share with this person so that they would also learn from my experience and they will be as happy as I am today. Thank you so much, guys. I love you. Thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to click on the notification bell and subscribe to this channel. Till I see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Bye.